watching the captain.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to episode 34 of the Captain's Lounge. I am your co-host, Captain Diesel, and I'm joined with my boy Jordan again. We're running it back for like, what, the sixth, seventh episode straight, it feels like?
Yeah, it feels like that now. It feels like we've been doing this for like 5 years.
Yeah, I mean, hey, we consistent with this shit. It may go that long. I know I was watching,
Yeah, man.
again, I kind of stole this setup from my guy Ernie Blurred off here, and I think on their one show, like Nerds of Culture, they're like they hit like 100, and they were doing this shit for like 2 years, something like that, or a year, some change. I'm like, damn, they hit 100. All right, cool. I'm on 34. We'll get there.
Yeah, you'll be shocked at how fast you'll get there too.
Mm-hmm. Everybody, thank you guys for tuning in. This is going to be a really interesting episode. We have a lot of great topics today. I think last week or the last time we did it, it was kind of like a tougher to find like robust topics to really get into that prompted a lot of conversation. But today, that is not the issue. We have three pretty good ones. Starting with conversations around some casting, but a certain dynamic around a certain particular actor that was brought up. Mr. Caleb McLaughlin. I'm gonna play this I'm gonna say TikTok short, this YouTube short that we're gonna react to here from my guy Shine Comics. Oh shit, wrong screen. There we go.
Bro, Caleb McLaughlin is Miles Morales with the Feed families. Nah, bro. This really brings me back to the Aaron Pierre and Jon Stewart situation, where the people that keep doing these fan casts aren't actual fans of these characters. They know nothing about these characters. They're just casting who they think is popular. I love Caleb McLaughlin as an actor. He is a great actor. He is my fan cast for Static Shock. But when it comes to Miles Morales, he's incapable of playing that role. Miles Morales is an Afro-Latino character. He needs to be portrayed as such. Miles Brown is the perfect pick for Miles Morales because he's Afro-Latino. His name is literally Miles. He looks just like the character. He's younger than Caleb McLaughlin, so he has, a little bit more years and stuff. He's perfect. Caleb just isn't fit for the role because he just does not look Afro-Latino at all. My brother is super duper dark skin, and that's why he needs to be my Virgil Hawkins. But I said this goes back to the Jon Stewart, Aaron Pierre situation because a lot of these weirdos who aren't fans of these characters don't know anything about these characters. Like, I own Jon Stewart's first appearance, but they got mad at me when I said Jon Stewart should be played by a dark skin actor. He should not be played by a hazel-eyed, light-skinned man. I don't think if y'all think he's fine, he's not Jon Stewart. Jon Stewart is a dark-skinned character. He was specifically conceptualized to be just that. Bro.
So there's a lot of things said there. Shout out to Shine Comics. I think he had a pretty good, interesting perspective there on that. And this is something I've talked about a couple different times on the channel in regards to fan casting. And it's always very interesting to discuss because I think there are obviously like the really gross ones where it's just people picking a character or actor just because they look like the person. Then it's just because they fit the background of the person. And I've kind of adopted the ideal at a certain point to where it's like, okay, first and foremost, before we do anything else, we need to make sure this person can actually act and be a good actor on screen and portray this character the right way. Because we've done the whole thing before where we looked at something like a Halle Berry Storm, where she's somebody who looked the part, very much so looked the part, looked fine as hell, but did not portray the character in the best light. Not saying she's not a good actor, but a lot of people acknowledge that she did not portray Storm in the best light, which you could blame that on the script or whatever it may be. There's a whole lot of bad scenes with her in there, but we've seen different instances like that before. Now, on the other side of the token, I very much so feel as though sometimes we put a unfair level of pressure and requirement on Black people and Black characters. Because when I look at some of the casting for characters throughout time, when you're looking at some of the Marvel stuff, I'm looking at someone especially being Hugh Jackman as Wolverine, right? Hugh Jackman is like 6'3", 6'4". Wolverine canonically in the comics is like 5'5". He's a short king, a very much short dude.
Short, yeah.
And people for a long time kind of questioned that in regards to his height. But he portrayed the character so well and brought a certain level of grandioseness, I guess, or like a unique quality to the character that he became everybody's Wolverine to the point to where it's hard for anybody to really think of another actor to take that place. I think the only other person I think recently I've heard is someone like Henry Cavill, because I think he was in the Deadpool movie. But even then, Henry Cavill, tall as shit, and doesn't fit the mold. So it's like we do this, I think, more so for Black characters I see, to where I look at somebody like Storm, for example, and I heard a lot of the drama around Cynthia Erivo putting her hat in the ring. And people were like, okay, Storm, she can't be Storm. I'm like, okay, why can't she be Storm? Granted, she's not my choice for Storm, but why isn't it? Why can't she be Storm? And for a lot of people, they did all this whole run around and talked about different stuff. But for the most part, for most men, we'll say men, it boiled down to, oh, she's not attractive enough, if we keep it above. Now, there was some other stuff around, like her questionable Twitter history in regards to some things she may have said about Black people. I'm not up to date on that, so I don't know if she said anything egregious. If she did, then obviously that is what it is. But the point being, I look at that. I look at other portrayals of actors when I'm looking at Damson Idris playing somebody in Snowfall who is from California. That nigga has never, or at least to my knowledge, never grew up in California. He is English as hell, but portrayed the role so well that most of us never even knew. We're looking at, I can't remember the actor's name right now, but he played something, but you're not American. Was it something Spencer? I can't remember his name, the main character's name.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah, I can't think of it top of my head, but yeah, that's a good example too.
British as hell. Daniel Boyega, Daniel Kaluuya. Like, we've seen all these British people. And again, it's like, okay, if they just fit the aesthetic, the physical aesthetic as far as them being dark-skinned in these roles, cool. Okay, if that's just the case. I don't know. The Miles Brown thing, I understand the irritation in regards to that, because people with a character like Miles, his heritage is very much so a part of who he is. But at the same time, I'd ask the question, why can't Caleb McLaughlin play somebody who is Puerto Rican? Because Miles, it's not like Miles is like a light-skinned Puerto Rican. He's a dark-skinned Puerto Rican man. When you look at Miles in the games, when you look at him in the show, I mean, maybe in the Spider-Verse, he's a little bit more lighter on the lighter side, but when you look at him in most of his appearances, he's a darker-skinned dude.
Right.
So at that point, I'm looking at Caleb McLaughlin, okay, can you learn at least enough Spanish to make this convincing? Can you increase your knowledge on, Puerto Rican heritage? Cool. If that's the case, for me, I'm not mad at that casting. Now, I understand that the Miles Brown aspect of like that being everybody's favorite casting, I think that makes sense because, again, to Buddy's point, like, his name's Miles. He is of Spanish, Puerto Rican descent, he's Afro-Latino. So that all comes together as well. So I'm not too mad at that casting either. I'm not saying it has to be either or. I just get really weird when I see people with Black characters in particular have a lot of that issue when it comes to that. When it comes to like a heritage thing, because you can't really I feel like when you choose a character based just off their, or actor just solely off their heritage, it kind of gets kind of muddy in as far as that goes. Now, in that being the case, I think there are other examples of where that can go right, because I know when I'm looking at the character, like I talked about me hating Tom Hardy's Bane for a long time, because Tom Hardy, they just changed that. They changed Bane's entire background and took him away from Mexico to fit Tom Hardy in his portrayal of it. I thought that was kind of fucking weird. So I'm not mad either way. I just find that very interesting, because white people don't do that. There are plenty of white actors who are in no way connected to a culture whatsoever and end up acting and portraying that culture because they're actors. At the end of the day, you have to pretend to be this thing. I don't know. And with the Aaron Pierre thing in particular, I did, because I know at one point I kind of felt a kind of weird way, mostly because of the fact in the comics I read, in the animated series that I watched when I was introduced to this character, he was a dark-skinned brother, bald-headed brother. Hell, for me, if I could choose a bald-headed dude with a beard, that's my Jon Stewart. But when I initially saw the Aaron Pierre casting, I wasn't too familiar with who he was. I was kind of, I don't know. I'm kind of weird about it. And then I saw him act in a role and saw him actually like see what he looked like on screen. I'm like, oh, dude's a good actor. He'll be a good portrayal of the character. He won't be my favorite optimal physical portrayal of the guy, but at the end of the day, it's a Black man in the role acting his ass off as my favorite character. So I kind of learned to let that go. But again, I don't know. I feel like maybe it's a whole thing when it comes to a lot of people that are of Afro-Latino descent, and maybe feel like they don't have the proper representation. Obviously, I feel that. I understand that. I preach representation on my channel a lot. So I don't know. Where are you kind of at with it?
Yeah, I mean, I thought what you said is a lot of good points. I think any casting of a comic book or story character or something that's from the pages is always going to be hard to one-to-one represent it, because there's not going to be somebody on the planet that's exactly like what was portrayed in that author's mind. So it's just like, the goal, of course, is to combine what you just said, good acting prowess with respect and relatability and a semblance to what the person actually looks like on the pages. So like, again, going to your point of like, I want the best actor for the role. Yeah, I want the best actor for the role, but I also don't want Timothée Chalamet to play the next Black Panther. Like, you know what I mean? Like there's a line with it for sure. But also at the same time, it's gonna be hard to like get exactly to what you would prefer. So everybody has to do trade-offs. And you can see based off when people argue, some people value more of the acting, some people value more it just being the representation wise, which is also valid being on screen. Cause like, Afro Latino, like maybe they want to really see that on screen. I'm like, I completely, like you said, I completely understand that and respect that. I guess my only argument is I also don't see an issue with Caleb becoming Miles and this is a huge if he makes sure that they put the Latino stuff in there. Like you said, learns a little bit of Spanish. They still if they just completely just neglect that and just only treat him like a black man through and through, like Black American, then yeah, I can see why people will be up in arms about it. But they're not even giving it a chance, So it's just like I think these conversations are always good. It gets to like the crux, like what do you value? And to your point about white, wasn't there a white actor that played like a samurai in a movie before? Like people don't be bringing that stuff up all the time. Right.
Pick one. From The Last Samurai to Keanu
Exactly.
Reeves playing a samurai in the 47 running. Like, I don't know. Granted, those are a little different just because those are just the white savior complex, a whole aspect of it.
Yeah.
But I'd be curious to ask people that feel strongly about it. I'm like, if I were to, and again, this is a hypothetical, I'm not critiquing any of these actors' abilities at all. If I were to say, hey, here's Miles McLaughlin, here's Caleb McLaughlin, here's Miles Brown. And I were to tell you, these two individuals are up for the role of Miles. Caleb McLaughlin is objectively a better actor. Would you then go with Miles just because he looks the part and has the heritage of it, or would you go with the better actor? And that's kind of what I'm like, okay, cool. So yeah, so I don't necessarily, because Miles is one of those characters where I have an answer a question in the chat here. My guy Arna Shaka 3800 says, so what do you think? In my opinion, I think Caleb is I think he's perfect for Miles Morales. I don't think there is. I don't think there's a perfect casting for it. I don't have a perfect casting for it, just because he's one of those characters and him, Static, most people from Milestone. Like when I look at those integral black characters, I personally just want the best possible actor for the job. And usually I want somebody that usually to make things easy for me, I'd rather you pick somebody that is not on anybody's radar. Like at one point, I remember when Jamie Lawson wasn't on the radar for everybody to be Storm, and she was in, I can't remember what movie it was in. Was it recently? It may have been, she was in some movie where she was a pilot or some sort. And she ended up being, no, it was fucking, what am I saying? The Sinners. Jesus Christ. I think that's Jamie Lawson, right?
I believe so. If we're talking about the same person here.
I'm pretty sure it's Jamie Lawson. Let me double check the casting just to make sure I'm not talking to my ass. Yeah, Jamie Lawson is Pauline. Perline.
Yeah, she's great. Yeah, I love her. Yeah.
Yeah, she was Perline, and she was the mayor of Gotham and the Batman as well. She's one of those actors where I'm like, again, didn't see too much around her until she was in those roles, and then all of a sudden she's everybody's fan cast. And it's something that I feel like within the black community we do this thing to where whoever is the hottest actor out, we go with that person. Like if she fits the role. Because with Storm, it was like, let's go with, because I think when that came out, there really wasn't too many. I heard the Angela Bassett stuff, but again, that's because she was a little bit older. That's more so if Angela Bassett was 20 years younger, 30 years younger.
Right.
I don't know, man. It's a difficult thing to kind of go through because I understand both sides of the coin, but for me, I'm kind of at the point: can we get a black person at the end of the day, and can they act, as though they're Afro-Latino and represent that right? Because we've seen it in different, we've seen it in a plethora of other times because we tend to do it a lot because we don't ever do this when it comes to like where people are regionally, right? If we have an actor who's from New York and they're playing somebody from Tennessee or Georgia, if they can act Southern and act like they can embrace that Southern culture, hell, I probably won't even know. Again, when I'm looking at Damson Idris and everybody from All American, I didn't even know them niggas weren't American until like years later. I'm like, oh fuck, these niggas are British because they acted so well and they perfected the craft. And for the most part, I feel like if people didn't know Caleb McLaughlin's history, because I think it's kind of like, damn, y'all went and looked up this man's whole family ancestry to find out who he was culturally.
Right.
And then I also have this thing where I feel like within the diaspora, there's this weird thing to where black people try to separate themselves so much within the diaspora. Like I understand there are the Dominicans, there are the Puerto Ricans, there are the different people that are within the African diaspora. But at the end of the day, nigga, we're all black people, and there's a similar tie there in regards to where we come from. But I feel like people try to take the slight cultural differences, and again, it really just came down to where we were placed during the transatlantic slave trade, and use that as like this big divider. Like the whole Poppy, I know black thing or thing, like they're separated. At the end
I
of
know
the day, for
black.
me,
I know black.
Miles Morales to me is just as much black as he is Afro Latino, in my opinion, because he's going through all the same stuff as a black person would. At the end of the day, for me
Right.
personally, and a lot of the Latino aspect of who he is comes into play with how he interacts with his own family, not as much so how he interacts with the world. He's going to be a black man to the world and Afro Latino to his community and to his family for the most part. So I'm not tripping too much on that for me at least.
Yeah, no, I think that's well said. It's just like, yeah, internally, yeah, we can have those scenes where if it's Caleb for that situation, he's speaking Spanish to his mom, you know, he can tap into it. But when he's outside, yeah, people only see you by that shade, unfortunately. So it's either you're black or you're not.
Yeah, and we got a question here. What age do you think Miles will be in the MCU? They're smart to go a younger actor. Which is probably why it's going to lean more to the side of Miles Brown, maybe, or maybe they do go with Caleb McLaughlin. Because I could easily see them going with Caleb just for the factor of he is a hot guy in Hollywood right now, coming off of Stranger Things and how big that show was. And I think this kind of all spawned from it, because this has been a conversation for a couple years now, but it came back up when Caleb was posting videos of him like doing a lot of martial arts training, where he's doing fucking backflips and roundhouse kicks and shit, and people are like, "What are you getting ready for?" And they assumed he was getting ready for a
Right.
Spider-Man role. So I don't know. And in regards to how old he needs to be, I used to think that Marvel was just like going in a direction of trying to bring up their young Avengers and make that a big staple of what they do going forward when they're introducing Miss Marvel, Kate Bishop, and things like that. But seeing how they're marketing Doomsday and how it feels like they're bringing back a lot of legacy people, I don't know. I don't know what direction they're trying to go into. If they're smart, they'll try to pick some younger actors and try to push the next generation. But it seems like, again, whatever they try to do that and try to do things differently, fans fight back and rebel. Rather it be them pushing Ironheart as a legacy takeover for Iron Man, because it's not going to be Rhodey. I'm sorry, people. Rhodey is fun. That man is 50 something years old. Don Cheadle is old as shit. Rhodey is old as shit. Rhodey's also been through like a big arc already as far as his character goes for the most part. Ironheart is a character who already existed in Marvel Comics, who has an intelligence that rivals Tony Stark. And hell, she already got the approval from RDJ, but people still fought that really hard and was mad at her. The thing, because I made the video about the black issue that Marvel had, and like the number one thing I saw a lot of people that talked about Ironheart specifically was like, oh, we dislike her, she's dislikable, we don't like her, she's mean, she's an asshole. I'm like, what did y'all think Tony Stark was in the Iron Man 1?
Right.
Hell, he was like that up at minimum. He was like that up into a minimum of Avengers 1, because he's literally in that movie saying Cap's only special thing about him came out of a bottle and shit like that, and being an asshole. But you gave him time to grow and change and develop and become more likable. With Riri, it's like, hey, Riri's a character and we hate her, and by the end of the series, she didn't become likable. I'm like, you wanted her to become and go through an entire major character arc in an entire limited series run at that. Keep that in mind, when she's supposed to be a major actor and a major character in the Marvel franchise going forward. Why would they not stretch her arc out over the course of multiple movies like everybody else? I don't know.
Right.
But yeah, my guy here says the actor playing Miss Marvel is the same age as Caleb. The actor playing Riri Williams is 28 in the comics. Riri is meant to be 15, and I think in the show she's 19. Yeah, so I think a lot of these actors too, they have the ability to play down in age to who they are a little bit.
You know why?
Oh yeah, Black Don't Crack, bro. You already know what it is. Honestly, I didn't realize. Oh my god, I'm blanking on her name. The actress that plays Miss Marvel, I didn't know she was that old. She looks young as hell in my mind. She looks young.
Wait,
as
how
shit.
old is she?
Buddy's saying her and Caleb are the same age. Caleb has to be like in his mid 20s now at this point, maybe like 24.
Yeah, you hit it right. I looked up Caleb. He's 24, and Miles Brown is 21. Just turned 21.
Okay, so it's not even that big of an age gap. I don't want to. Again, people just say that you want Miles Brown to be. He's your favorite pick. Just say that, because if you're talking about he's significantly older, that nigga is only 3 years older than that man. It is not like kids.
Right.
Like Caleb's like 28. Like Caleb is 24 years old. Let's relax. Again, I understand having your favorite pick for the character, but I don't know. If this was a whole thing where this man was a full-on white man or a full-on Puerto Rican of any other descent, and he looked nothing like, if he looked like Timothée Chalamet, to your point, or fucking the same shade as Drake, I understand a lot more than fight back. But at the end of the day, Miles Morales is a dark-skinned black man and has his culture, ties to his Latino heritage. It's not like this man is a full on Puerto like he's like a light skinned Puerto Rican man. He's a dark skinned black man. So I don't know. Again, I see both sides of the fence, but it's tough. It's a tough conversation to have.
You don't think Drake can play Miles, man?
Stop playing.
Hey, bro, watch the aggressive, man. Like, yeah, he was shopping back in the day.
Always trying to ice skate uphill.
Stop playing with me, nigga.
So I had to throw
You're
that out
nasty. You're a nasty Negro, sir. But yeah, I don't know. It's a tough one. I don't know if I have any other fan castings for him, but I don't know. I understand characters need to match the aesthetic, but again, I've seen so many bad Marvel movies at this point. It's just to a point to where I'm like, let's prioritize the acting ability first, and then once we find the acting ability, let's try to get them as close as possible. Because at the end of the day, with a lot of these superhero characters, you're not going to find an actor that fits every single criteria that you have out there. Again, going back to Storm, you're telling me you want to find a woman who is from New York, or at bare minimum can understand New York culture, also is either from or has ancestral ties to Egypt, because she lived in Egypt for most of her life. Because keep in mind, I want everybody to remember, Storm is from New York. Her family is from New York, and then she moved to Egypt, to Cairo, Egypt. She didn't grow up over there, but she moved there, and then she came back to the States, and she's also a tall woman who's athletic of build, and also has a very powerful voice and how to present. That's a lot to get into. Really, as far as like finding one actor to portray all that stuff, and I don't think you'll ever find one person to be all these different facets of this character, especially when you're talking about characters who have been around for a while and have gone through different changes. Because also keep in mind, everybody's ideal version of what that character looks like is really just based on the most popular version of that character or the most recent. So in everybody's mind, Miles Morales looks like how he does in the Spider-Verse. Versus when I look at Miles Morales, I'm looking at him in the comics. Comic version of Miles Morales looks a lot closer to Caleb McLaughlin than he does to Miles Brown. He's a darker skinned dude. His hair is a lot more nappier versus when you're looking at the Miles Morales in the show or in the Spider-Verse movies. He's a little lighter. His hair is not as nappy, at least from what I can tell. Again, it just depends.
Yeah,
and then Unlucky German has a good point here, at least for Storm. He says, I don't think her heritage matters as much as Miles just because of the Spanish part. I don't know. I think it depends on the person. Well, it's also, to your point, I think people don't make the distinction between Egypt and black, like we'll say foundational Black Americans for lack of a better term. There's not that big difference there. I do feel like there is like a little bit of a dividing thing here where people try to make the Latino aspect of Miles like a thing that divides him from other black characters. But at the end of the day, he's a dark-skinned black man that has cultural ties to his heritage. And again, for the most part, when you read Miles Morales comics, when you're watching the show, when you're watching the movies, his heritage only really comes up when he's around his family and around his community. When he is out saving the world, he is presenting as a black man. He is still wearing and acting and very much so his the black part of who he is. He's not speaking Spanish when he's fighting villains for the most part. He's doing Aman Vellani. Thank you so much in the chat for giving me your name. Again, yeah. So the age thing is stupid. The thing where I don't know. I think this is just a really annoying conversation to have, and it's a needed conversation. I won't say it's not needed. It's a needed conversation, but it's very tricky. I will say that. Annoying is probably a bad word for it. It's very tricky because no one's gonna be happy. There's not gonna be anybody happy. Because these people there's not gonna be a perfect casting for it.
Yeah, no, it just because it can't, because these people were created in people's minds. Like, it's going to be really hard to find somebody. I think the Storm example is the perfect example. You're going to find somebody that had that same lifestyle. That's why that's why at the bottom, when you see movies and stuff, when they're like in that very fine print in the credits, it's just like, hey, this so happened to actually replicate like a real person. Sorry about that, because we just completely made all this shit up. If it just so happened there actually is somebody that like lives like this and has this name and had this sort of experience, we did not in any means try to like do that. So just like they even know is like this is really hard to do a one-to-one. So all you can do is the best you can. And you don't. And the funny thing is, all these conversations we're having, you don't think the people who are part of the hiring team don't hear this too? They feel the pressure. They feel the pressure. They know. And that's why, like, even if let's just say they can't get the fan casting that they want, sometimes they'll do it in little ways, like how the Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness, how they had a homeboy from Mr. Fantastic, because everybody just wanted him as Mr. Fantastic.
John Straczynski. Straczynski. I can't fucking talk today.
Right, and then you got turned to spaghetti like 5 minutes later. But he was there. He did it. So it's just like they find ways to like try to squeeze it in so like y'all know, like, hey, we hear y'all, but at the end of the day, this is our job to make sure we do the best. Because at the end of the day, they have to make sure they're doing their job so the big corporations like Disney and stuff can make money. So you don't think they want to get this right too, so they can put y'all in the seats?
And you're not gonna make everybody happy. That's the thing too. Like, no matter who you pick, one side or the other is gonna hate that person. I think in very few rare instances are people like enthralled with that performance. We have again a handful from Hugh Jackman to Ryan Reynolds to Chris Hemsworth. I almost said Tom Hanks, fucking Chris Evans, like ScarJo. There's not too many in regards to a lot of that stuff. And let's get into some of the comments here because we got a lot of people in the comments. Again, for everybody that's here, for new faces, thank you guys so much for showing up. And for the people that are returning, thank y'all so much for coming back to it.
Yes, sir.
Talks about kind of random, but not sure this applies. But with the different Peter Parkers we've gotten, could we be looking at a situation of better Miles versus better Spider-Man? Alex, are you talking about like who people think is the better Spider-Man?
People still do that.
If that's the case, that was a whole thing when Miles was first introduced as a whole, because people remember like when Miles Morales was first introduced, people. We'll say, I say people, but we know who those people are. He's not their Spider-Man. We know what it is. There's a whole pushback there.
We know who you are. Yep.
And unlike Jeremy says, if Caleb wants to play superhero right now, he'll hit up MBJ and James Gunn and get that static movie going. In my opinion, honestly, yeah. As much as I've talked about the Spider-Man casting, I think I would love to see Caleb McLaughlin as a Virgil Hawkins in as Static Shock. Honestly, I want to go with an older Static Shock as well. And that's part of the reason why I'm not mad at going with the older Miles Morales in this, just for the factor of I'm kind of over the origin stories. I'd love to kind of do what we did with, I love to do what we did with Tom Holland Spider-Man, where we like met him as he was kind of already in the journey, versus like seeing the origin story. I think we've seen origin stories for a lot of these heroes enough. Like I'd rather get into it and then let them develop and kind of, even if it's really early in their journey where they're still learning themselves, cool. But I don't need to see another origin story for every single hero that we see. I think it kind of gets redundant and it's more so like a money grab. Just do origin story after origin story. Did he not do a Tom Cruise Tony Stark? They were supposed to. So I know back in the day, it was announced that Tom Cruise like initially turned down the role of Iron Man back in the day, and the rumors were that the person that we saw, there were like when you look at the Multiverse of Madness trailers, people thought that that photon in that was one of two people, and they thought it was Tom Cruise Iron Man, and they thought it was Blue Marvel. But people were fucking like begging for it so much. The rumors that I've heard is that it was Blue Marvel initially, and people were making so much of a ruckus about it, and Feige got so mad that people were trying to spoil the shit that they just ended up switching it last minute. I don't know how true that is, but that's the shit that I've heard about it. Douglas Pendleton in the realm said, "Oh, just found your channel today. Appreciate it, man. Hope you enjoyed what you saw. I don't know what video. Well, you more than likely found the Marvel Black Problem video. I think that's the one that's been doing really well recently. So whether it's that or a different video, thanks so much for finding me, man. I appreciate it."
Welcome.
Alex says like Toby, Andrew versus Tom. I don't think we'll see as much as that anymore, just because I think we're kind of past that in the zeitgeist. Maybe the conversation comes back up. But he essentially, to give you more context, Jordan, he's saying who's the better Peter Parker in their movie and who is the better Spider-Man in their movie in regards to Miles versus Tom Holland. They'll do that comparison.
Yeah, they probably will, but like, I am curious how they're going to do that in the MCU, because I'm just curious on what Brand New Day is going to even be about. I'm still confused about it. That's a whole other topic though. But just like, I need that man to get past just that first. I think there's a lot of obstacles there that he needs to get past before we even talking about comparing that to Miles. That nigga needs to make it to tomorrow. It's gonna be a brand new day. It might be his last day.
Mm-hmm. But y'all are killing me in the comments. Thank y'all so much for being here. Y'all, the comments moving so fast. I'm trying to keep up with them and talk at the same time. Do some the Douglas Pendleton in the realms again says folks on the digital the digital webbing forums went off about a Black Spider-Man. Yeah, there is, again, when Miles first came out, there's a big fight against having him as Spider-Man, and people felt that he was replacing Peter Parker, which we've already had the conversation around. You can have different versions of a character, and since then we've seen like 3 different other versions of Spider-Man at that point. One is a mutant that we see right now in X-Men. That's like a Spider Girl, I think is her name. Action Packed, FTW. Again, thank you for showing up as well, brother. For Static, we kind of need the origin because it's so crucial to his story and many other milestone characters from Dakota. I could agree with that in regards to seeing the Big Bang. But I could also see them like just showing it in like a flashback or like alluding to it and kind of moving past that. And because I feel like, and I guess this kind of answers the question here, or I'll get into this question here with Unlucky Dreamer. He asked me, Diesel, are you over teen heroes? I'm not over teen heroes. I think for certain heroes, it makes sense. Like, I think I would love to see like a Teen Titans show, like them as teenagers.
Yeah.
For certain heroes, I think it makes sense. But for heroes like a Miles or like, or even like a Spider-Man that have been around for so long and we've seen their origin story so much depicted, I'm just kind of like, I don't need to see the origin again. But again, that's probably just me being a little bit jaded because I read a lot of the comics, so I see the origins. Like, literally, whenever you see a Miles run, because he's only really had, I think, 2 solo runs. He had his original one after Ultimate Spider-Man, which I got I had it on the shelf back here somewhere. I had it somewhere in here. In my collection, and then he had the most recent one that ended at like issue 42 that was done. I think that, to my knowledge, those are the only 2 solo runs that he had. But in the fact I've read 2 Miles solo runs and seen the origin story alluded to or told to an extent throughout that, I feel like I don't need to see it again. He says I think Caleb is more likely to play Miles and Static. Possibly. I don't know. Well, probably just because I remember I've seen a couple different interviews on like from Stranger Things from the promotional thing where they asked him straight up. It was like him and Sadie Sink, and they asked Sadie Sink who's the character that Caleb would more likely want to play, and he was like, yeah, for sure, Miles. So he wants to play Miles at a certain point.
Who would? If I was asked that, I would have. Yeah. I can't even act. Hell yeah.
Yeah. Also, Simalu and Caleb have the same agent, and him commenting on Caleb's post probably shows something big. The Static movie is kind of canceled, I swear. I don't think it's canceled. Honestly, I think the Static movie is probably more likely to happen now, just because based off of the fact that it seems as though Milestone and DC have really patched up a lot of the licensing issues, because in the new history of the DC universe, you see them there again. And then we're seeing, obviously, the current Static Batman Beyond run. So I think they're starting to like figure that stuff out. Plus, I'm pretty sure they saw the interest in the Static Shock animated movie that was like teased a while back. That and the Batman Beyond animated movie as well. They know there's an interest there in regards to people going to see that. So I think it's in their best interest to do it. I think James Gunn also has a good relationship with Milestone Media from the Static Shock show back in the day. That I think he knows that that's important. I think he'd get that done as well, because he's already making it a big point to bring the Blue Beetle back into the DCU. So I could easily see him bringing Miles in and doing his own like Teen Titans type of situation or Young Justice type of deal. And the last comment here, I finally got up to the end of the comments. Action Pack FTW talked about doing a Big Bang with brief flashbacks, making it into a horrific / traumatic moment for Virgil and other Bang Babies would be a cool creative take. Yeah, again, I think there are plenty of ways you can like allude to the origin without having to do a full-on origin story to where like the first 20 to 30 minutes of the movie is introducing this character without powers, setting up the scenario, going through the event, and then showing the powers in that whole journey. I think you can legit start the movie out to where he has his powers already, and then you start the journey from there. I think you can do that, and it still be early enough in the where it's a whole thing. I feel like I've been yapping. You have any other thoughts? I know we've been kind of on this. We've been on this for like 35 minutes now, so we probably get into the next topic.
Yeah, no, I enjoyed this. Everybody in the comments, I appreciate y'all's insights, and Charlie, I always appreciate yours. You know, I'm always looking at this from just a very casual standpoint. But again, I think if there's anything we should get from this conversation is that you shouldn't get mad about who they ultimately choose. Let's just hope whoever they choose, they do great. And if it's Caleb, I hope it's great. If it's Miles, I hope it's great. Whoever, it could be a random person. And we just hope that it's actually something that we want to see on screen. We just want to see Miles on the screen, right? People are just excited. So like I try to give people the chance and grace to like give out any sort of like fan casting that they have. But we should remember like, hey, if the person's not who you want, you don't need to go harass the person on social media. You don't need to be mad. It's just like, let's just trust the process.
Right. And two quick comments on this. Well, two quick comments before we move into the next topic.
Yeah.
Last one for Dreamer. Would you say young adults and other comic readers or people in general kind of have inversion towards teenage superheroes because of their age and experience with the mediums? I do feel like there is a little bit of jadedness from a lot of different people that aren't fans of the source material, because again, I think most people their version of Miles Morales is going to be the Into the Spider-Verse movies. So they're going to want their Miles live action to look just like that. They're not familiar with who he even is in the comic book, so they're not going to know even what he looks like in that format for the most part. So there's going to be a little bit of like cognitive dissonance as far as that goes. And as far as comic book readers, I think comic book readers are probably going to be the most difficult people to please because there are so many different takes on Miles and so many different writers that have written Miles from different stuff, from the Ultimate Universe to his own solo runs, to where people are going to want their favorite version of Miles to be the one showcased. And if it's a version that is not your favorite version, now you're going to kind of not enjoy that one as much. You're going to feel like it's not your Miles at that point, even beyond just the physical aspects of it, of how he's written.
Right.
As far as that goes. And then Action Packed FTW has a good thing here of what advice do you have for people that wanted to create their own independent comic books? I'm glad you asked this because again, for people that are brand new here that may not know, that are new to me, again, my name is I'm Captain Diesel, obviously, and recently, I think you can find the video pretty recently in my catalog of videos I put out. I've created my own comic book now that is now out, titled Reaper, and I got that published through Echelon Graphic Novels. Of which I am now a partial owner of, which is some news that I don't think I've like shared publicly anywhere. In regards to how to get it done, if again, I can do the easy plug thing and tell you to, you know, if you want to would think about doing your own book, go reach out to Echelon Graphic Novels through Instagram, through email, whatever, however you find us, through the website or whatever it may be. And you can like have a real life consultation and conversation with us there about getting your own book done. But in regards to how you go about doing it and like how to create your own, I would honestly say kind of find your vision and find the story you want to tell, whether it be your own personal story, whether it be a story that inspires you. And then from there, just kind of draft your thing. I think everybody tends to have their idea of like what their own personal superhero would be, or even if it's not a superhero, if it's just like a character as a whole, you have things that inspired you from the shows you watched, the movies you enjoyed, whatever it may be, video games, and kind of just go off of that, man. And then just let your story take you there. And as far as from the technical aspect, do your research, read comic books. Honestly, that's something that I've already read comic books before I made my own book. But since I've written my own book and I'm working on writing more to continue the series on, I'm reading a shit ton of books from amazing writers that I want to, just so I can see what I can take away from them and how I can improve myself. It's a craft that I want to improve at every issue from issue to issue and be better than I was beforehand. So if you just want to get into the field and write and create your own independent comics, again, I'd recommend speaking and reaching out to us over at Echelon Graphic Novels. And from there, just do the knowledge, man. Do the knowledge. And yeah, go ahead, Jay.
Yeah, I will say this is advice for me. Never wrote a comic, but it's actually advice for Charlie too. Actually, give yourself grace while you're doing this, because I think there's this notion of like, oh yeah, bro, like I gotta write this and I gotta be the greatest writer ever. It's like, dude, there's beauty in just the simple fact of you're doing something that a lot of people would love to do, but is too scared to even make that jump. So it's this notion of like, hey, slow motion is better than no motion, right? Like just getting in the game. Now that you're in here, Charlie, I've already heard, y'all don't see it, but behind the scenes, he's just like, hey, man, like I saw this from the last issue and now I'm doing this and this. And I'm about to eat for this next one. It's like, that's great. See, but you wouldn't even gotten to this point if you didn't try. So it's just like, you know, I think the advice is just like, if you want to do it, just do it. You only got one life. So like, just do it. And if it doesn't work out, it don't matter. You can still tell people, hey, I wrote a comic book, or I created a comic book, or I did this thing. So I just say the best advice is just to just do it. Just do it, man. Just do it. And then, you know, if not, then hey, it is what it is.
Yeah, take that chance, man.
Oh God.
Yeah, let's get into this next topic here. This is the topic I kind of had this. I'm not gonna say I spazzed, but I had a whole day.
He did spaz.
For a lot of people that are maybe not aware, there is, for a very long time, if you've been in the zeitgeist of comic book fan, there's been this narrative around Stan Lee. People believe Stan Lee back in the day said that there was a illusion or a comparison when he first created the X-Men comics way back in the 60s, I believe, where he based them off of Malcolm X and Dr. Martin Luther King. So, for people that aren't aware, because I could easily understand why you wouldn't be aware of this, because it requires just a little bit of like research. This is fucking false. This is not true. Malcolm X and MLK in no way were the original inspirations for these characters. Now, why do I say this? Because people again say, oh, Stan Lee was the first one to say that Stan Lee had this idea. First and foremost, I want to give you guys a little bit of background knowledge. Stan Lee wrote these characters around, I think, the mid 60s, right? Or no, it was like the early 60s, because I think Black Panther came out in like 66, and X-Men came out like 2 years before, I believe. And when he initially wrote them, when you read the first couple because again, Stan Lee only wrote 19 to 20 issues of the X-Men. After that, he himself talks about in multiple interviews how it got too hectic for him to write other characters and then keep up with all the characters from the X-Men. So he abandoned the X-Men, gave it to somebody else, and went on to write, I think it was like Hulk or Spider-Man or whatever it may be, and left and go wrote those characters. So he only wrote 19 to 20 issues. And then going further, the X-Men didn't become household names and become extremely popular till you can argue probably around the 80s. Because in the 70s, like 75, they picked up a little bit, but it didn't become a household name till Chris Claremont took over and started to add a lot more depth to these characters and gave them the backstories that you could even make a connection to in regards to them being the characters that they are. But what I have here, I have a little video, and again, shout out to my friend, my guy Ernie Blood Without Fear. He showed this video on Threads. Interview from the 90s, and this is like during the peak X-Men craze, because this is when the animated series was coming out. And it was an interview with him and a bunch of the other creators, like Scott Liddell, I think Chris Claremont was there as well, all the other people that took part in making X-Men a household name. And I'm gonna see if you guys catch something here when I bring this up. Let me share the screen. Hold on, let me get the video set up. I'm fucking up. Reaction. Okay, here we go. I'll like come back to it. Just have to refresh it.
Is this on Threads?
It's on Threads, yeah. I've been using Threads a lot more.
Most about the relationship between Magneto and Professor Xavier is we've always tried to have villains, or at least very often, who weren't totally bad. Now, to me, Magneto really thought he was a good guy. He felt he's a member of a group that are meant to rule the world, Homo superior, as opposed to Homo sapiens. And he felt we're persecuted, we're hounded and hunted. Why shouldn't we strike back? We're superior to the human race. And from his point of view, maybe he was right. And Professor Xavier could always understand that. And he was always trying to reason with him and make him realize it. Right. Now, as far as you guys are concerned...
Well, we've changed all that.
It's not like that. That's what I was about to say. Now, but you've changed it so much. For example...
One of the problems we came up with is that Magneto is becoming too popular or too recognized as a good guy. Yeah. So we had to find a way to bring the tension back between them, because they were both starting to go too closely together in their own, the same philosophical road.
I guess it's like that old saying about, like, you know, a hero is only as interesting as the villain, and I think like Magneto was really interesting in the beginning, but if he got too good, then it made Xavier not, and they didn't have anything to react against.
Well, it's tough when a villain's picking up laundry around the house. Right. You got to get it back to the villain.
Magneto
destroy cities.
And I think what I think makes Magneto interesting, as Stan said, he's not evil. He has a different point of view. He's not evil per se. So it's tough for the X-Men to fight him all the time, because they're not sure if they're doing the right thing or he's doing the right thing. But he's the most popular villain because he is so fascinating. He is a guy who doesn't believe he's evil.
Well, and then there's the whole like Martin Luther King as Professor X. You know, he has a dream of something better, whereas, you know, Magneto playing the role of, putting in the role of like the Malcolm X.
You know, I remember with Professor X, when I first proposed doing him, our publisher said, you can't have the hero, the leader of the group.
Okay, I'm stopping it there. You caught that at the end, right? Well, there's a lot of things that were said there, but I want to start with the end thing, where Scott Liddell brought up the idea of the comparison of MLK to Malcolm X, right? And you saw how quickly Stan Lee went from that to talking about how Xavier couldn't be in the wheelchair initially, or his publisher said he couldn't be in the wheelchair, and he was getting into the whole idea of why they were the X-Men. So when the concept was first introduced to him, Stan Lee didn't, again, if he was so down for the idea and the comparison, why would he move away from that so quickly if he's talking about his inspiration for making the characters initially? Because he went through all this shit with Magneto, and he's about to get into more shit with Xavier around the whole them being under creation. And when somebody brings up the idea of that comparison, he changes the topic really fucking quickly. And then after this, later on, is when he starts to make that comparison a lot more and makes it seem as though that was his original idea to do so, when these people more so had it in their minds to do so. And keep in mind, because Chris Claremont wasn't even in this room. So the person who gave them the backstory, that gave Xavier and Magneto their backstory that could be used for this comparison, he wasn't even there. And I want to showcase a little bit of evidence and a little bit of conversation around that as well, because There's a thing that I also found in regards to an interview when it comes to Chris Claremont, because I want to really harp on Chris Claremont for a second here in regards to his thought process when he was making this. Because when you look at Chris Claremont, again, the person who made these characters, who made the backstories for these characters, to make these characters household names, when you ask him about where his inspiration came from, we get into this. Where is it at? There's a lot of talk. Hold on, fuck. There's a lot of talk online now that Magneto is a stand-in for Malcolm X and Xavier stands in for Martin Luther King, which is totally valid for me, being an immigrant, white. Chris Claremont was born in England, for people that didn't understand that. It's valid to make that analogy, and he felt that it felt incredibly presumptuous and an equivalent analogy that could be made from, but I can't speak English today. Essentially what he's saying is that he understands how valid the comparison can be, but that wasn't his initial idea. His initial idea was to base these characters off of the Jewish prime minister at that point and a Jewish terrorist or essentially was a terrorist. I got to do more knowledge on who that person is, but two opposing Jewish figures in history. Those were his initial ones, because he, not being a black man nor being from the States, he felt that it was very presumptuous to make a comparison like that. So he went what he knew, being a Jewish man himself. So again, we have Exhibit A, and the fact that we saw when this fucking shit was brought up to Stan Lee, he moved past it incredibly quickly. The person who made the backstories and himself talked about how that wasn't his initial plan when making those characters. And the point I want to get to now, and again, after I finish this point, I'm going to turn it over to Jordan. I just want to kind of get through all my pieces of evidence to why I think this is bullshit. When you get into who they actually are, right? And we talk about the aspect that Stan Lee brought up in regards to Magneto getting tired of being persecuted, and he moved into the whole idea that the Homo Superior, the mutants, should be the ruling party. They should rule over everybody and be the governing body, right? When you look at Malcolm X and who he was, yes, he did at one point discuss getting peace by any means necessary, but even though when you look at what that meant, he's more so talking in context of protecting them, black people protecting themselves, protecting their neighborhoods, not going out to conquer the country. But when you look at Magneto, right, and you look at the aspect of who he is, you look at things like this. And where he's saying the human race no longer deserves dominion over planet Earth. The day of the mutants is upon us. The first phase of his plan shall be to show his power and make Homo sapiens bow to Homo Superior. So he's not looking for protection. He's not looking for equality. He's looking for domination and subservience of human beings to mutants. And he's looking essentially to be a fucking ruler and be a dictator. And when you look at other instances where he essentially, which is even crazier, is looking to damn near be a Nazi in his own fucking right. Because you're looking at panels like this, in which this is a different moment here to where he's essentially having a different mutant cast an illusion for an entire people in this whole country of Morocco, of making them see soldiers storming on their country so that they run in fear and turn over their fucking land to Magneto where he can control this country. And I don't think it's very, it's not very hard to make the comparison of who these soldiers look like and how they move and what they look like, right? And make that comparison there. The very last thing I want to bring up, again, shout out to my guy Ernie, Blood Without Fear. Ernie had a post on Threads, because Ernie's been fighting this whole narrative for a long time as well. And he put a post up asking Marvel comic creators and anyone else who actually knew Stan Lee, not met him at a con once, but actually knew Stan Lee. He asked, did he really base Professor X and Magneto off of Dr. King and Malcolm X? And he was asking people that actually knew this person. Gail Simone, and for people who aren't aware who Gail Simone is a prominent and prevalent X-Men writer, and is an amazing writer as a whole. She herself is someone that met Stan a couple times, didn't know him personally very well, but she obviously pretty much knew from her own perspective as somebody who's been writing the X-Men for years to this point and is very familiar with the X-Men lore and history, because she needs to know this to create stories that people actually enjoy. And we're not going to do this bullshit of saying that she's not made it writing good X-Men stories, because some of the more favorite X-Men stories that people have been enjoying over the past couple of years, she's been a part of. I think even the more recent, I think she's been writing Exceptional X-Men up until Age of Revelation. That was her as well. And she pretty much understands that there's no way that comparison was made initially from Stan Lee's side of things. So again, it's just from multiple sources, from multiple pieces of evidence in multiple ways, you can see that this is fucking bullshit. But yet people still want to carry on this whole narrative. And usually what I saw when I was debating people online all day, like I think it was last Saturday, when people were fighting me on it, the two things that I saw the most was, oh, do your research. Stanley said that. Could not point to it whatsoever. And then when I bring up the interviews and whatever it may be from Chris Claremont or whatever it may be, they say, well, technically the comparison is wrong because it's a comparison. Yes, technically, by technical means, you can make a comparison no matter how asinine or how unrealistic it is. You can find a similar trait with something else. I can say fucking ice cubes and ice cream are similar because they're both cold, even though I understand they're two completely different fucking things. I don't know, it's just a lot of people being nonsensical, and part of me, it annoys me because it's from my own people, and I think part of it is that whole idea of like black people wanting to find representation no matter where it comes from, which is why you see a lot of black folks in anime like clinging on to Namekians or through Uchiha because they are people that are oppressed and that were shattered on at one point, so they see similarities between us and them, so they pretty much put blackness in them, even though not all those characters may be black coded. It's this whole thing. But before I rant anymore, I know I've been talking forever. Jay, what are your thoughts, your sentiments, concerns?
Yeah, no. Now I appreciate you laying it out for folks because I think to your point about people saying, well, Stan Lee said it. I mean, we heard it in that clip, but that goes to the whole idea like people are listening, they're not actually comprehending what the actual conversation was about. You just kind of get in this gotcha moment. It's like, oh yeah, I heard those two words, those two people said, so it has to be related to this, right? And it's like, no, not necessarily at all. If you listen to the context of what the conversation was about. The second thing is I really want to lean into what you just mentioned about black people clinging to just find representation. Like, I get it, man. Like, I want to empathize with everybody who wants to really cling on to this idea because on a very surface level, I can see where people are coming from. But then when you dive deeper, like, and again, from the evidence he just showed from Magneto's actions, he's more of a person. Malcolm, because this goes into actually a bigger thing. Like, do people think Malcolm X wanted superiority over people? Like, he wanted us to uplift us within our community, but there was never a moment, even towards the latter half of his life, which probably got him killed, and made him realize, like, hey, like, you know, even my most extreme things, I'm starting to realize, like, yeah, we can build within, but there was never a moment where he wanted to like take over the world. That was never his thing. And I think some people genuinely think that. So like when you see these sort of conversations, people are just like, well, Xavier's the peaceful, trying to, you know, keep the status quo. That's what Martin Luther King was, which, by the way, that's false too. But then like people are like, oh, Magneto is the one that wants to really change the status quo and take over the world like Malcolm X. And it's like, that's not true either. I think y'all actually don't know who your own leaders are.
You don't. And I realized that. And Ellen Kadura makes a good point here. Charles Xavier is low-key a worse fucking villain than Magneto was. When we're looking at Dr. King, right, and how Dr. King operates in regards to him wanting freedom through peaceful means by any means necessary, like willing to get water hose sicked on him, dogs sicked on him for the sake of being peaceful without doing it in non-violence. Charles Xavier created a paramilitary force of child soldiers and utilized them and trained them in a dangerous ass fucking simulation room called a danger room where they could possibly fucking die. And there's been a lot of different issues where like the danger room has been manipulated and used against the X-Men, where this shit's damn near killed a lot of them in damn near any prevalent fucking X-Men run. So the room's fucking dangerous. So he's training child soldiers. And I want people to remember there's a whole era where the original X-Men team that you get introduced to, like the giant-sized X-Men with Iceman, Angel, Cyclops, Beast, that wasn't the first X-Men team. The first X-Men team got lost on a mission on an island, and then people on that team, one of the members of that team was fucking Cyclops' brother Havoc. So Xavier just lost the whole X-Men team, lost a bunch of kids, and just replaced them with new kids later on. Which part of that led to why fucking characters like Cyclops were so pissed at Xavier over time, leading to a point in time where he fucking murdered Xavier in cold blood because he was so tired of him and how he operated. Not to mention Xavier having this like pedophilic relationship or love and adoration for fucking Jean Grey. Xavier as a person, as a character, is a shitty individual. So making that comparison to fucking to Dr. King is fucking egregious to me. It's fucking nasty in my mind. And those ideologies, they don't match up at all in regards to how they operate. This nigga Dr. King would never get a bunch of kids and tell them, hey, you go fight for our rights while we sit back here at home. And to another person's point, to Action Pack's point about the inspiration for Xavier, that wasn't even an original thing. Stan Lee copied the idea of Xavier from the fucking professor from Doom Patrol. Doom Patrol were the inspiration for the X-Men initially. Just going through some of the comments here. The ideologies don't exactly line up because their life experiences are different, and because it's superhero fiction, it's soap opera, melodrama. Yeah, and that's another thing too. Like, there are similarities between the trauma and the drama that Black people in America went through during chattel slavery and during the civil rights movement, and what Jewish people went through during the Holocaust. But the two are not exactly the same in how they add up. And again, me saying this is not to say that there was never a point in time in which this analogy was made by any writers, because I do think as time went on, more and more writers started to implement more of a civil rights aspect into these characters as time went on. We're just talking about the original versions of them and how Stan Lee created them. Stan Lee, upon his initial creation, did not plan for this to be a whole thing. This is not a thing. Malcolm X over MLK, I'm not going to get into that because this whole thing, this whole can of worms I don't want to open up today.
I don't want to open that right now either.
Yeah, actually, Malcolm X did not want to take over the world, but he may have wanted to if he was in the Holocaust. And then, again, maybe in this hypothetical situation, if you give Malcolm X all this power and you put him through something like the Holocaust, maybe. But the nigga did go through and see, to an extent, or at least have the knowledge of chattel slavery and went through the civil rights movement and saw things that were damn near. Again, we're not going to compare trauma here and do a whole trauma Olympics, but the nigga was around during lynchings happening and all kinds of public executions of Black men and his people and persecution of his people. Like, if all that happened and he still didn't fucking snap and just go full Nat Turner on people and go from place to place murdering white people, I'm pretty confident that I can say he may not have done that if he was Magneto, personally. I thought that was a secret team, not the first team. I wouldn't say MLK is perfect, but he isn't grimy like Charles. Yeah, again, MLK isn't a perfect individual. Everybody is flawed. But again, the nigga did not have a child soldier military force. You
didn't hear that. You didn't hear him say, "I have a dream that I want to have little children and to go out and do my work." No,
he's actively going out and fighting to fight himself. He's not sending children in to do the job for him.
He's on the front lines.
But yeah, man, this is the whole thing. And I'm tired of it because it's something that, again, I'm not too mad at for people that are, let's say you're a millennial and you're 30-something years old and you remember hearing Stan Lee say this as a kid and you saw this narrative being put around the internet and around magazines as a kid. Cool. I get that. But you're at a grown age now where if I show you a direct interview of the writer who made the backstory saying that wasn't the intention, and I show you a timeline of events of when that whole narrative started out and how Stan Lee wasn't the first one to say it, all right, bro, if I give you all the evidence and you still deny this shit because you want to see yourself in these characters, it's more so an issue with you in regards to you not being able to find representation in anything else or like be confident in who you are as a person. And again, representation is very important to me, but I don't want to just like forsake it in the sense of looking forward in things that it wasn't originally made for or it wasn't originally put in. When you look into the X-Men in particular as a whole, in regards to their idea of Black people being involved, bruh, for people that are watching the show after this stream or even during the stream, if you got a chance or you got another monitor, I want you to look up how many Black X-Men writers there's ever been. And I'm not talking about X-Force. I'm not talking about any other random spin-off book. Like a mainline book that says X-Men on it, whether it's exceptional, amazing, unbreakable, whatever it is, it says X-Men on it, and tell me how many Black writers there were. And I want you to also look at how many Black X-Men there were up until we get into like some of the maybe like the later 90s or like the 2000s, where they start to implement a little bit more. Because to that point, outside of Bishop, and even then Bishop's like Native American and Black, and outside of Storm, the first Black male X-Men I can think of is Spike, and that was X-Men Evolution in the early 2000s. And even before him, it was Bishop, who again is half Black, half Native American, and then you have Storm, Storm was created in the fucking 80s, which is almost 20 years after the inception of the X-Men being created. So in this whole analogy around Black people and this whole comparison around MLK and Dr. King and the Civil Rights Movement, for you to not have any Black writers or any Black characters to kind of get this analogy off is kind of crazy. And then during the whole run of the X-Men, when Storm introduced, or a little bit after following the events of Storm being introduced, do you write Kitty Pryde saying the N-word, a hard ER, to other Black people? Oh, she's a mutant. Yeah. Oh, I don't know. I'll see if I can find a page here. But it's literally a page in some of the early X-Men where Kitty Pryde calls some Black kids the hard ER, and you legit have Storm smack the fuck out of her later on. So I'm like, why would you do this whole thing if you're making an analogy around the Civil Rights Movement and making sure that mutants are an analogy for that? Why would you then have them go and then straight up call another Black person a hard ER and like perpetrate a lot of the fucking racism there.
Yeah.
So it's
What the
it's
world?
insane. Evie 2155. Yes, we discussed that. The Caleb McLaughlin thing in the MCU with Spider-Man was the first thing we talked about. So if you want to see us discuss that whole thing, you can scroll back to the beginning of the stream or just wait until the thing's over with and go back to it. But yeah. Oh my God, bro. Yeah, it was the God Saves Man Kills series running X-Men. Thank you, Douglas Pendleton. Well, I'll probably show it to you after the stream at some point. But yeah, that was a whole thing.
That's crazy, bro. And you again, like you said, you didn't expect these same. Yeah, that blows me.
Yeah, Action Packed FTW says they weren't allowed to have that many black characters back then because if you had more than one black character, it was considered a black property by you know who. Yeah. There again, when you're looking at the Comics Code Authority back in the day, they were really strict with a lot of shit they had in the Comics Code Authority. Like at one point in time, you couldn't ever show a villain winning. Like villains couldn't win. I think there's a whole thing around you couldn't have villains be too violent. Like again, it was really strict in how that goes. I need to do a whole stream on that at some point around like how far comics have come in regards to what you can get away with. Because back in the day, you couldn't do anything with a lot of that shit. But yeah, my bad.
Yeah,
Any other thoughts or comments or concerns? I've been kind of ranting. This has been me ranting all fucking stream. I feel bad. My bad.
Nah, y'all don't get it, man. Y'all, when the original posts that Diesel put on all the social medias, I went on Facebook because I never get on Facebook, but I hopped on there. I remember specifically it having only 40 likes, but over 100 comments. I was like, oh, these niggas talking. So I'm not engaging in this whatsoever.
That was just that one post in that one nerd group. I put that post on Threads. I put that post on a couple of different places. Matter of fact, just for the fun of it, I'm gonna pull up my Threads post and I'm gonna pull up some of the comments that were that I saw there. I think I banned a few people or blocked a few people because I was not dealing with the bullshit. I'm getting, when it comes to community around me and this channel, I am so quick to block and ban people or hide them from my channel or from my stuff, because one thing I'm trying to be really intentional about is as I grow as a creator and grow a community of people that are dope, I don't want racists being embedded in that community and I don't want fucking coons being embedded in that community. So if I see you on some bullshit, you can go somewhere else with that bullshit. Don't be around my platform with people that are looking to have genuine dialogue here. Because again, if it's just a whole thing of like you have a honest dialogue and conversation or a different opinion, I'm down to have that conversation. But what I'm not going to do is sit here and allow you to be racist on a platform and make other people feel like they can't have conversation or be safe in the safe. I want my platform to be a safe space for people. And I'm not going for the bullshit. Not going for that. I'll have the conversation, but I feel like if it goes too far left or too far right, to be more honest, to be more quaint and more realistic, I'm blocking that shit. Let me scroll down. Where is this at? It wasn't too long ago. I've been posting a lot of shit. Okay, here it is. This is 57 comments. This is 62 likes and then 52 comments just on Threads alone, right? Let's get here. Stand on business. Guy asked me why would I be annoyed. Stan Lee reportedly explained that he created mutants and X-Men as a way to talk about bigotry, prejudice, and civil rights. Again, this is not true. When you're looking again, if you go back and you read the first X-Men book, or you read all the X-Men books that Stan Lee wrote, you will see no allegory to racial epithets in it whatsoever. It's going to be good guy versus bad guy, because that's how he wrote stuff. Stan Lee wrote comic books from a very simplistic lens, which is not an issue, but don't go back and do that thing. And then if you look at Stan Lee over the course of his life, you see him in different instances try to like gas up his mystique and his legend of who he is by taking credit for some of the writing that other people did at that point in time in history, like that of such being Chris Claremont. Again, I want people to understand, Stan Lee did not write any popular X-Men stories for the most part. Most of the X-Men popularity became a thing and became a household name once Chris Claremont took them over, almost a decade plus later. There's an article. Let me see more articles here. There's a lot of people agreeing with me. I'm trying to find some more crazy ones. Yeah, we can just see the first X-Men to this Ballsy comparison. They're fun analogies. Did I just block everybody that was on some wild shit? You're right about the comparison part, wrong about the creator. Chris Claremont didn't create Magneto, Professor X. Again, these are people that are lacking common sense. Stan Lee, I'm not saying that Chris Claremont created Magneto or Professor X. He wrote their backstories. He wrote their backstories and created the whole idea around the super big mutant hate. And again, the first early iterations of the characters were just good guy versus bad guy. Not directly, but the comparison can be made. The X-Men began in the 60s and were effectively a placeholder for a marginalized group. Stan Lee never said it directly, but you see, and this is a whole thing where people are looking for things where it's not there. They're looking for representation where it doesn't exist. Just because a story came out during the 60s does not mean it was automatically then for an allegory for fucking racism and for the civil rights movement. Because keep in mind, I want people to understand too, the 60s is actively during the time the civil rights movement is actually going on. And at this point in time, MLK and Malcolm X are both looked at as fucking domestic terrorists and communists, like in the public eye for white America. So I'm going to have a hard time believing that this white creator who is making a book that is going to be consumed mostly by white America is going to make a book around and based off of people who are then looked at as terrorists and hated by America. That's not a smart business move. That's just not. I'm just not. That's like me writing a comic book now and basing a character off of fucking Donald Trump and Charlie Kirk. and them not be the fucking supervillains of the story.
Oh,
that's not
Lord
good for
mercy.
business. It's not good for business, dog. Here we go. We got one. He got one. Homie thought he was cooking when he said he should look up who Chris Claremont based those characters on when they were around 20 years by that time Chris Claremont came around. Just shut up. Again, I showed you guys a direct interview from Chris Claremont himself saying that wasn't the case. But people just I always see people on YouTube or in comments in sections in general around content, and this is something that I'm kind of more discovering recently as a content creator, is that people will see something that goes against what they believe, what they know for historically, and their immediate first comment is, do your research, you're wrong. And then I show them evidence of me doing research, and it's, oh, well, I heard it from this, that, or the third. I had one nigga on Facebook try to bullshit me and say he did an interview with Chris Claremont like a decade ago in Florida and said he said that. I asked him, hey, well, show me the article or the video or whatever you did for that interview. And I watched it. And if I'm wrong and he said that, cool, I can retort my statement. That nigga didn't post not another fucking comment on that fucking post.
Yep. Sounds about right.
In other comments, yeah, it's not even just a Marvel thing too. When you look at Bob Kane, in regards to Batman, Bill Finger got shafted. I don't know if a lot of people know this, but the creation of Batman was made by Bob Kane and Bill Finger. Bill Finger more so probably had more of an input on the creation of the character, but for literally almost damn near his entire existence of the character being around for just 70 plus years, Bill Finger didn't really get credited for most of the creation. Like usually when you go back and read or see any of the shows and movies or whatever talking about Batman and who they're crediting for, it's usually just created by Bob Kane. So literally for a long time, it took DC like I think pretty recently to go back and like give his family. I think they gave his family some money or gave them some rights to the character finally. And they're starting to now whenever you see Batman content, they'll have Bill Finger's name on there now. But that's a common thing within comics. Where back then, people that own those characters, whatever it may be, would just take credit for other creators and other writers and just try to say it was them all along, and take that credit there. Yeah, it's been a whole fucking thing. Douglas Pendleton says, I've been reading comics off and on for 5 decades and never seen that. Yeah, bro. This, and it was crazy is that all this shit is not hard to find. This is you can do a simple Google search and you can find all this stuff. You don't have to go back to Google Scholar or any kinds of like difficult things to find articles. It's right there. It's right there. But yeah. Fun fact, Bill Finger wrote an episode of the Batman 66 TV show. Oh, you mean the Adam West show? That's fire. That's fire. Yeah, you have any other thoughts before we move into the last topic? I think you probably have a lot more to say about the last topic, just because I know there's been a lot of nerd history here that you may not have known about.
Yeah. I mean, like I'm more particularly stuck on just is this a mischaracterization of the of Magneto or Xavier, or like I don't know if people genuinely understand like Malcolm X and MLK. Like I still think that's a conversation for a whole nother day. But just like I'm just hearing this, I just don't think they actually know them either.
Also, side note, lean a little bit to your left on the camera because you're like leaning off.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the thing. Again, when you look at how history is taught within schools in general, like I remember being taught about MLK, but I remember I had to learn. I think I had to learn about Malcolm X like outside of school with my grandfather, and like find it through other means of knowledge because they're not teaching me about who Malcolm X was in school.
Yeah.
Especially when you go
And
back
they
and
even
look to see like who like owned a lot of those history textbooks that we got when we were growing up and shit. Like they coincidentally took him and took any knowledge about the Black Panthers or any of that, or Freddie Hampton, took all that shit out of those history books growing up. So for a lot of those
Yeah.
millennials that had those same history books, or even some of Gen Z like us, if you did not do your research outside of fucking traditional elementary, middle school, and high school, even well, I think college, you can maybe get more of some of that information because professors have a little bit more leeway to teach what they want to teach there. But yeah, bro, if you're not doing your own knowledge, you're not doing the knowledge, it's gonna be a whole thing. And then Unlucky Gamer says what Bob did to Bill is actually the nastiest thing in comic history. Yeah, it was pretty bad, bro. Man died poor and died with no credit to his probably his greatest creation in Batman. But sure. Moving on to the last topic of the stream. And this is one that I'm really excited to get into. We've kind of already discussed it tangentially when talking about Sinners and a lot of the conversation around it getting snubbed potentially from Marnie Supreme and a lot of different other things. But there was a conversation around why this is such an important thing and why not just people, but Black people specifically felt like this was an issue in regards to Sinners not getting things. Because it feels as though for a long time, Sinners had a lot of antagonistic energy towards it from Hollywood. When you're looking at how Vanity Fair put that whole article out about them not making their budget back at the time, and it was only like a week after, or like not too long after the movie came out. When you're looking at people trying to discredit the movie, people trying to compare it to From Dusk Till Dawn, blase, blase, blase. And friend of the show, hopefully friend of the show, Kevin on Stage put out this video on Instagram today that I saw where he had a really good, poignant conversation and discussion around why he believes it's so important. And it kind of ties into why Tiana Taylor and her award, because she won an award for Best Supporting Actress at the Golden Globes for One Battle After Another, which I was so happy she got because she deserved that Oscar, or not Oscar, but that Golden Globe award. But again, while this weight was a thing. So let's go ahead and get into this conversation.
Gnawing at me this award season with Sinners and One Battle After Another, and I think I figured it out, and I think it's the weight of Blackness. Bear with me, this will be a little bit longer video than I normally do. I was thinking about Sinners and why I wanted to win so bad, because it lost Best Picture and Best Original Screenplay at the Golden Globes, and I was like, why am I so invested? And I think it's because it carries such a cultural weight, and I think sometimes the voters probably can't get what that type of movie means to Black people. First, on the it felt like Hollywood was against that movie. It was like, Ryan Coogler got this deal, he doesn't deserve it. What does it mean for movies if they give him back in deals? And then it was Variety, Sinners had a great opening weekend, and then Variety was like, I mean, they had a good opening weekend, but it still needs to make X amount of dollars to reach its budget. And it's like, oh, now I feel like this movie is versus Hollywood. And movies don't usually carry that much weight. And then it's also like the cultural weight of the movie. I feel like Black people understand more. What I mean by that is I'm a church kid, so when I see a movie and it's a Black movie and the church has a pipe organ, I know that doesn't culturally fit. I'm like, oh, y'all don't get Blackness. It's probably like people from Chicago. If somebody was writing a movie or a TV show about Chicago and the characters are from Chicago and they were like, we're gonna go to Giordano's and eat deep dish pizza, you'd be like, that's not right, because we don't eat that. We eat thin crust on the daily and deep dish on special occasions or when people come to visit. And I think only people from Chicago can get that. And I think that's how the weight of Sinners feels. It feels like the voters don't get the weight of the movie, the Blackness, what it means, how detailed it was, and all that type of stuff. So when they don't vote for it, it's because they might not see the weight that we see. But we also feel like the movie needs to be more for us, because when it wins, we win. And I think that's the same thing about Tiana Taylor's character in One Battle After Another. She actually won the Golden Globe for Best Supporting Actress, and Black people, I see a lot of discourse basically tearing her down, we only win when it's a criminal or a hoe, or she played the Jezebel type. And I was like, I didn't even see that at all. I saw that character as a flawed revolutionary. That was what Tiana Taylor was to me. She was, the reason she did what she did in the beginning was to embarrass Sean Penn's character. The reason she had sex with him was because it seemed like her only way out and to protect her people. And that character made that choice because it made sense for that character. Her parents wanted her to be a revolutionary, but she was always a runner. She wasn't a good mother. She was a flawed character, and flawed characters are often the ones that are Oscar and Golden Globe nominated, regardless of race. But as Black people, it's like we need our characters to be flawless because Tiana Taylor's character isn't a character a lot of times. She carries the weight of Black people. So it's like, well, you want to celebrate this, that's what you think of us. And I think the voters are like, maybe, I don't know, that's a character. Or maybe that is what they think of Black people. But either way, it's the weight that her character has to carry for Blackness. I think a lot of times white actors don't carry that same way. It's like Will Ferrell can kiss another white man on the lips and he's not representing the whole white community. It's like, oh, that's just Will Ferrell, you know, frat boy humor, blah, blah, blah. But then when a Black actor plays a queer character that's really a character, it's like, you see how Hollywood want to demasculize the Black man, you always got to be gay or wear a dress, and it's like, Will Ferrell is acting as himself and he doesn't have to carry the weight of whiteness, but a Black actor acting as a character has to carry the weight of Blackness. And that's why I think this whole award season has been boiling down to me. A lot of times in media, it can never just be media. And I'm not even saying it should, it's just like it weighs so much. And then with these awards too, I feel like as a Black person, we feel like when it wins, it validates all of us. When the movie that we think should win, whatever awards does, and when it loses, it says we lose too in this system. Because Sinners was amazing, original, broke records, a box office success. By all metrics of a movie, it wins, and the awards prove we also win. And I make it, even if I'm not in the movie industry, like at my job or whatever, because it seems like being Black in America is a struggle on the daily. So sometimes we want a little hope, and we put so much weight on all those things. So those were my thoughts, just the weight of it all.
So, yeah, I think I agree with a lot of what he said. And I think the biggest takeaway that at least I wanted to point out for me was the fact that a lot of us as Black people have such a unified, shared experience within this country, and hell, even to an extent, maybe around the world. And we rally around film or projects, whatever it may be, in such a way that it feels like this is us. Like, it's not just a movie, especially when a movie like Sinners that is so based in Black culture, and having conversations around Black spaces and things of that nature. It's not just a movie, it's our movie. Rather that be this, rather that be Harlem Nights, whatever, maybe any Black classic, well, maybe not Django, but any movie like that, especially when it's produced and made by a Black director, a Black team, or acted by a Black cast. So when I'm looking at this, to an extent, because I was trying to understand why I felt so irritated by Sinners not winning certain awards. Or when I saw that during the Golden Globes, the award that Ludwig got for Best Score wasn't televised, but they televised a whole skit and dance routine and all kinds of other bullshit, but Sinners winning an actual award wasn't televised. And it really pissed me off, and I was trying to figure out, why am I so mad at this? And when I watched that video, it made sense to me as to why I was so annoyed by it, because again, it was that whole thing of, this movie is not just a movie. This movie feels like it's a win for not just Ryan Coogler, Michael B. Jordan, Wunmi Osaku, Haley Stein, all of them, but it's a win for Black people as a whole, because it's a story centering the Black experience and Black history, written by a Black person who is getting all kinds of amazing things done, from the factor that he's getting ownership of this movie, that this movie is breaking all kinds of records in the box. It's doing all these successful things. And usually in America, Black excellence and Black success isn't just a win for that individual person, but it's a win for Black people as a whole. And it's something that, for better or for worse, I think in occasions like this, it can be a good thing, but can also be a little bit of a negative thing, to the point of when he brought around Will Ferrell or whatever it may be, because you'll have certain Black actors who want to go outside of what's accepted. Because I think us as the Black community still have some negative traits, especially when it comes to how we see the LGBTQ plus IA plus community in regards to Black men getting to portray gay people on screen, even if they're not gay, and that whole idea of them being in the Illuminati or doing or selling out or whatever it may be because they're being gay on screen. That whole idea is something that I also find very annoying, and that's like a rigid thing within the Black community as well. So, or even to your point, like I know you talked about it before, like even painting your nails. Like if Michael B. Jordan showed up to the next film and he had to paint his nails and play a gay character, again, the Black community will have a lot of things to say about that, and they would look at him a lot differently than they do now, and a lot of people will lose respect for him. So again, it has
Yeah.
its pros and its cons to that whole idea of like having you as a black person having not just your success and your perspective and your reputation on the line when you're doing something, but you have the entire black community on your back as well.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think white folks don't get that. Our sense of community runs deep to that point of like one of us make it, we all make it. I mean, I hear that phrase all the time. Like, I'm trying to remember, is it Issa Rae that like was at a award show? She's like, "Who do you want to win?" It's like everybody who's black. But it's like this is just super ingrained into like what this is about being. And there's like you said, there's pros and cons to it. Like I love it, but there is this sort of a weight that you feel, especially as you move higher up. And this goes for anybody, not just actors. I mean, it goes for me and you too. We start being into spaces that are less and less black, and we're seeing less faces around. Now we know that we're not just representing ourselves. There's this double consciousness that like W.E.D. Du Bois always talk about. It's just like you are conscious about yourself and you're conscious of how everybody else sees you as a black person. That carries a lot of weight, carries a hell of a lot of weight. So that's just something we should think about as we try to navigate through this. But the second thing that I've just thought about really is this is a draft of a thought, so please forgive me if this doesn't sound right. But I think about this film and think about the time that we're in right now during this second administration. But I think about Ryan Coogler's also very pro-black film in 2017, Black Panther. And I think about the time that was in. I think that was right after Trump just got elected. I think people are just up in arms about how awful he is. And that's just right after losing Obama. I feel like the public, from white folks, not the Academy, I'm talking about white folks, the public perception on those two movies are vastly different. I remember when 2017 when Black Panther came out, it got like a 98, 99 on Rotten Tomato. Every white person, even though I secretly know they didn't like it, they were just like, greatest film ever, man. I love black people. I'm glad y'all can have that on the screen. Like it was almost like nobody could say anything bad about it because they knew we needed that after Trump got elected, after losing Obama. We needed that. And we went out in droves. It was very similar to Sinners. Like people got dressed up in their African, like it was a whole thing, man. I remember going in college and just seeing people dress up. And it was just such a great experience. And I'm glad that my parents don't even watch movies in the theater and they went to go watch that in theaters. And it was a great experience. They haven't been since until Sinners. And very similar Sinners, we gravitated towards this experience we had on the screen. But the difference is we're in the time that we are right now. And it seems like the shift from both white folks and from corporations is just like anything under the sun to kind of put us into the back burner. And I can't help but feel if these movies were flipped, like this movie, if Sinners came out in 2017 and Black Panther came out now, I wonder, will Black Panther be as loved as it did in 2017 as it did now? Not by us. I'm talking about the perception, because I'm talking about if we're looking at those articles, those same articles that said that Sinners, oh, you gotta make the money or whatever. Those same articles when Black Panther came out said this is the greatest thing that MCU's ever cooked. So I just find it really interesting. I think also we should have into account culturally where we are right now and these culture wars and these weird times that we are right now. How Sinners also it's just plucked, unfortunately, in this time where it feels like everything's inflammatory. And I'm not talking about us. I'm just talking about like white folks specifically. It seems like the white folks I know now, they'll try to find everything under the sun to be like, oh, Marty Supreme's better, or oh, this ain't that big of a deal. But I wasn't hearing them say that with Black Panther.
You know? Is my soundboard not working now? Oh, wait, I know what I did. Hold on.
You triggered my trap card.
And you didn't trigger it, but it's more so something I was waiting. I thought I would get to this conversation or this particular point, and you made a very poignant point in regards to how these movies are perceived. Personally, right. I don't think it's necessarily when these movies came out that makes them different and how people perceive them. I think it's subject matter. When you're looking at Black Panther, and the idea of that film is that the evil person in that film, being Killmonger, is somebody who wanted Black superiority, who wanted us to go assist and focus on assisting Black people and keeping things within the diaspora. And when you're looking at it, and he was kind of really big on imperialism. When you look at T'Challa, he was somebody who, again, was very much so kind of in a similar way closed off and wanted to keep things there. But at the end of the movie, the good things seemed as though to be that they opened up their borders to the world and they allowed everybody in. When you're looking at Sinners, that film is based around the idea of black spaces being sacred and not allowing all guests in, and the dangers of allowing guests within black spaces. And I think therein lies like where a lot of the difficulty of understanding for a lot of white people, especially maybe some people in the academy, and how they see the film, because you're inherently telling them that they're not allowed in a black space. And when they're in a black space, they potentially harm it and destroy the shit, which is true to an extent.
Yep.
You have to be very careful about who you allow into your spaces and the conversations that we have and how we view things, because it can end up being a culture vulture situation or them literally just dismantling the shit from the inside out, because they don't get the same experience. They don't understand things. And I think because those two different things, or those two different movies have drastically different, let's say, ideologies there, I think that's where a lot of the issues with Senator kind of came about. Granted, there's a lot of external factors around the movie that made people, at least especially people that are within Hollywood, feel a type of way about it, because I know a lot of people didn't like the whole aspect that Ryan Coogler got rights for this film after a certain amount of time, saying that it would be bad for the industry, which we know for the most part who it is. It's these big studio producers that are scared that directors that are of a certain echelon are going to start asking for rights to their films, which honestly I feel like you should at a certain point, because if these studios are going to make billions of dollars off of it, at a certain point in time, it should go to the equity of it should go to who created it, whose brainchild it was. Personally, I feel like that's a great way to change things up going forward. So they saw that as a threat, and I could understand as to why black people feel threatened in regards to Hollywood feeling really hostile towards this film, because again, the Vanity Fair article. And then especially now we're getting into like award season, and we're seeing a film like a Marty Supreme getting awards, where again, as much as I love Marty Supreme, and again, if you guys watched the streamed episode we did last week, I had Marty Supreme on my top 5. I thought it was a top 5 movie from last year, in my personal opinion, from what I saw. That movie came out Christmas Day. Sinners came out in the beginning of the year. There is no time between December 25th and now for people to watch this film, because a lot of people get to movies late, and to have general dialogue around this film. Sinners had an entire year of conversations around identity, around cultural spaces, around what it meant to even be a filmmaker and a writer. It inspired a lot of people in a lot of different ways, and it was a cultural fucking movement for not just black people, but for cinema as a whole. And there was plenty of time throughout the entire year for that movie to breathe and provide those conversations. And not only for that conversation to be had, but for there to be other showings of the film. Like throughout the year, the movie was put back in theaters in multiple instances. I think during Christmas or during the holiday season, it was put back in, and it made its entire budget back in that like one stint, or that one, there's 2 weeks or something like that. It was something crazy like that. Made a shit ton of money again. So the fact that that's a whole thing, I'm just like, okay, I can see why that feels like there's an agenda here to make sure Sinners is downplayed, because I think they understand at the beginning of the year, there is no other movie that was in the same stratosphere as Sinners when that movie came out. Now, by the end of the year, you could argue One Battle After Another is up there in that same, like in a similar tier. You could argue Marty Supreme is in a similar tier. But I still think that Sinners is in a tier above the rest because of the message it gave. And again, personally, I'm very biased because these stories and this perspective is very personal to me and who I am as a black man. And I can understand how maybe Marty Supreme maybe had connection to a Jewish population, but even then, the Marty Supreme experience and Marty Bowser was not based around him being Jewish. It was his background, but how he operated in the world had nothing to do with his cultural background. It had everything to do with who he was as an individual. Versus Sinners, that plot is very much so based in the black experience. And even with One Battle After Another, you had that to an extent with Tiana Taylor's character, because she was a black revolutionary from a revolutionary family. So I can see that being a whole thing. But even then, her whole aspect of it was taken out very quickly. And it more so got down into a little bit of identity issues and kind of the idea of like a half-breed and shit like that when you get into Sean Penn's character. And I don't want to give too many spoilers for that, 'cause I do want people to go see that movie as well if you haven't seen it, because One Battle After Another is an amazing movie. But yeah, I think Sinners has a very unique perspective that puts it a tier above everything else. And because the movie preaches the sanctity of black spaces and not letting everybody in the club and not letting everybody in the room, I think there's pushback from a lot of people that are within Hollywood that understand a lot of the metaphors. I don't think the Academy or people that watch a lot of movies are stupid. I think that they're irritated. When I see people see this movie and say, "Oh, it's not all that," I'm like, "There's no way you see this movie and don't at bare minimum think it's a good film." Now, there are some things that I understand. Like, I don't like films that have any kind of introspective thought. You like action movies, you like comedies. I get that. Those people, I'm not really too worried about, because I'm not even going to make fun of like intelligence levels. I just think that's their capacity for their entertainment is they have a lower bar for their entertainment. But for people that watch movies that try to take lessons away from film, they're being very much so willfully ignorant, or at the bare minimum, they're understanding what the message is. They just don't like it because it's saying that they're not allowed in.
Yeah, yeah. It's that scene from Euphoria with the actress Alexa when they're in the play. She's like, "Is this fucking play about us?" That's literally how they were probably watching that. Because, like, again, if you watch Ryan Coogler talk about this in interviews, you can see how much passion he loves about. You can argue that Miles, Canton, like the one who played, yeah, like his character, that is Ryan Coogler in the film industry.
Yeah, I can see it.
You know what I mean? Like, I think, I think Ryan understands way more than we do because he's in those rooms. Sort of the predatory nature of like how he has to basically put out his soul at Fruitville Station, and everything else to like, I guess like make it big, while also these sacrifices. Like, who do I let in? Like, it's probably a lot of stuff he has to think about constantly. You can tell when he talks about this film, this feels personal. So like, because of that, I'm not shocked that the executives also feel like it's a personal thing. They're just like, no, you ain't gonna let this have this, nigga. Sorry, bro. So it's just like, you know,
because I do think it also sets a precedent. It sets an example for other. Again, for I swear to God, in 10 to 15 years, you're going to see so many up and coming Black directors and writers that they're gonna cite Sinners as their inspiration as to how they got into film and why they got into it. Because this movie's going to speak to a lot of people. And the fact that this Black man was able to make this on a limited budget. And again, for me, it makes it even more fucking crazy for me personally because it's a horror film. Yes, some people might think it's scary, but again, every horror film doesn't need to be fucking scary, your pants off scary to be qualified as a horror film. That's a whole conversation for a different day. But because it's a genre that already doesn't get respect, and it's around a Black experience that already doesn't really get a lot of respect unless it's done by white directors and white writers, it's just like a fucking concoction of the underdog being so fucking dominant.
Yeah, because it's like, it's a period piece. It's a Black film. It's horror. It's a musical. It's like, to me, even the genres itself shows us as a people how we're just all these things at once. Like, it's like, this movie is so good. It's just like, the fact that it doesn't sweep is we all know why. But
it's already like the most nominated film at the Oscars ever. So it's got a bunch of nominations, but I'm calling this shit now. It's not even going to win half those nominations. It'll get best score probably because Ludwig's the one there, and it's a white man that did the composition.
He's a white man.
So it'll get best score. It may get some award for box office stuff because you can't deny the numbers there. And maybe they give somebody best supporting actor or actress, but they're not giving things like film of the year, all that other shit. That shit, I promise you, that's just gonna either go to Marty Supreme or One Battle After Another, or maybe they'll fucking slide some shit in there with Begonia or the Frankenstein film with fucking Guillermo del Toro. Just because those are the Oscar favorites there. But I swear to God they're gonna host Sinners. If they don't, and I'm wrong, I'd be happily surprised. But I swear to God, I think that's what's gonna happen, and I'm gonna be pissed off about it.
And that leads to your last point. You said it earlier, and I need this to be very clear. You said, "Hey, I'm not." This movie, I am biased by this because of my own experience, but I will argue nobody can 100% be unbiased. You have your experiences, you have your things as you're making decisions. So it's just like, yeah, on top of everything that we just talked about, these people don't know, they can't even see from inside the club. They can't even get in. So like, if you can't party inside the club, they really don't get it. So of course, naturally they can look at it and understand it's a good film, but like, all the things that we see that make it just sort of like subvert feel, they're going to be biased against feeling guilty about not being able to understand this. So it's okay. I think it's okay to be a little biased about this. I think that's what makes these films great, is being able to use your own perspective and experiences and be able to showcase it to the world. Ryan Coogler only was able to make a film like this by being able to be biased based off his life experiences. So, you know,
and this is definitely good. And I talked about it in the previous stream when I was giving my top 10 of the year, when I was just discussing why I thought Sinners was so good. But there's going to be an obvious disconnect between the Academy, the consumer, and their peers, where it seems like the peers, the other actors, the other directors and writers understand how good this movie is, and they would say it won. The actors would say it as well. The consumers obviously say it because of the fucking box office numbers and money the fucking film made. But for whatever reason, there's this disconnect between the people that are within the Academy that vote and everyone else. Because there's just, I don't know, there's just strange disconnect there. But we'll see. We'll see how things go as far as the award season, how it rounds up. And I think for maybe a stream, whenever we'll probably stream after the award season and come back and report and kind of give our thoughts on what we thought won or not. Because I think there's still a few films from last year I haven't seen, like Bugonia, which I almost saw in the theaters myself, but you know, a date I had that night did not want to go see that shit, which I should have went and saw that movie anyway. And then I haven't seen the Frankenstein film because I was just kind of Guillermo del Toro kind of put a bad taste in my mouth after the fucking the Cabinet of Curious Monstrosities, whatever that shit was called. Granted, still love him because he gave me Hellboy, but I don't know. And to Action Pack FTW's point, black directors don't even really get the opportunity to make films like this. I legit think we got this opportunity because Coogler had the name behind him from working with the MCU and having a movie like Black Panther do so well. So they gave him, they're like, oh, you know what? Low investment, high reward, probably. We'll give him $90 million and send him on his way. And he took that cheap budget and turned it into a fucking generational fucking film.
Went
and
crazy.
hopefully, if I'm him, I'm not making another Sinner sequel until I fucking, or if I want to even add to this universe, I'm either not doing it or I'm waiting until I own all the rights to it.
I agree. I will wait because he's a young man, 25 years. He'll be what, in his 50s?
Yeah, he'll be
fine.
up there with fucking niggas like Scorsese and them. He'll be able to make a dope movie.
Right. I will just completely wait. I don't care how much money they're throwing at him.
Yeah. So again, he's an amazing director. I do want to also make sure we're shouting out other amazing black directors and writers. And I'm looking at somebody like Nia DaCosta. Again, people hated fucking the Marvels, and I get it. You didn't like the Marvels, but what she did with Candyman, I thought was really fun. And she's done some other amazing work. And I think she's getting ready to do another major Marvel movie. I can't remember which one it was, but she's doing another project soon. Then Bomani J. Story is another person that did a great movie when it comes to the black girl and her monster, the angry black girl and her monster. There's a lot of people out there that do dope stuff that are also black. Because I do remember that was a comment on the Marvel has a black problem video that I saw where a person was like, "Oh, it was the Black Pain video that I did where a guy in the comments was pretty much talking about how you're only watching these white movies and you're not giving credit to other black directors, you're not promoting them at all." I'm like, brother, you haven't seen or even looked at any of the videos on my channel. Because you could do one quick scroll through the videos I have on my channel and see all the different instances where I'm bigging up and bringing attention to black characters, writers, films. That's most of my channel. Most of my channel is talking about representation of something to some sort, and I go back to that a lot. But yeah, you have any closing thoughts before we wrap everything up?
No, it's just I will say in the times that we're in right now, being black or brown is tough. You're holding the weight. You're holding the weight for a lot of things that you have to simultaneously still do life stuff. Go to work, eat, make sure you eat right, talk to your family, but then you have to deal with societal issues as well. So I think is a beautiful thing. I think heavy is the head that wears the crown, but I heard somebody say, God, what's the quote, the rest of the quote? But I heard somebody say, yeah, I don't mind the crown being heavy because I think it comes with a lot of benefits when it comes to what it means to be black. I wouldn't change that at all. Like if I can go back and do it all over again, I'll choose to be black 15 times out of 10. But just knowing that like it comes with stuff, man. And I think we have to give ourselves grace sometimes when we navigate that.
Yeah, somebody said it, and I definitely agree with it. Being black in America, black American, is the most unique experience I feel like there is in the world in regards to how we have to live our lives and how the connection we have with where we're from and I guess it's very unique in a way that I don't really see any other people in the world having that. So yeah. For everybody that is new to the Captain's Lounge, I want to give you guys an update again. This is the Captain's Lounge. This is a stream that I do every Tuesday at 8 p.m. on the channel that we're going to be very consistent with this going forward throughout this year. It's going to be me and Jordan or me and some interview I may have. I may have like an interview of a different comic book writer or creator that may come through at some point soon. I know I have interviews scheduled on the docket with Doug Wagner when he drops his book Narco with Image Comics in a couple months, and then I've been in communication with Stephanie Williams that I may be having her come on for an interview in April. Hopefully, fingers crossed, if her schedule's not too busy to talk about all the shit she's been writing, because she's been writing a lot of shit from Roots, Madness to Temporal to everything under the sun. And then content-wise for me, I'm gonna be completely transparent with people here. I'm not making any money off the channel right now, because there is some AdSense bullshit that happens. So like my AdSense channel is cooked at the moment. So literally me continue to make videos on this channel for at least until I get a appeal decision made back from Google, I'm doing this shit off the love of the game, just because I continue to love and enjoy making content. And having these discussions and being a content creator, it's something I don't think I could ever stop doing now that I've started and been consistent with it for so long. So rather than money's here or not, it's just being fully transparent with y'all. I'm doing this for the love of the game right now, which is killing me because I got a video that is doing very well that I can just know I can get a couple $100 off of if I got the money for that. But you know, for all the new people that have been coming from Threads, wherever you come from, Action Pack, FTW, you've been really rampant in the comment section for a lot of stuff I have going on. Who else was in here? Douglas, Pendleton, a lot of the names. Thank you guys so much for showing up and being consistent in the comments. Unlucky Dreamer, my dog. If you guys have not checked out his YouTube channel, he does amazing content. Funny enough, I think his content sparked the most recent video that I did on my channel. I don't know if you saw it now, and I gave him a shout out there. But yeah, he's great, and he gets more consistent. He's gonna have an audience that's he may outgrow me, really. He may outpace me soon because he's fucking amazing in how he does it. So again, thank you guys so much for showing up, showing out, and being consistent. And yeah, y'all, as far as more content you can expect this. So you can expect 2 streams a week. The Captain's Lounge will, again, be every Tuesday, 8 p.m. We're going to be consistent with that. And Sundays, I'm going to be doing a stream with Dr. K, where it's going to be more so just purely comic book related, called Pull List Therapy, where we're going to be talking about our favorite books from the week, just different comic book topics. Depending on how consistent that is, because she has a really rampant life too, so that may end up being myself having a conversation around the comics I read that week, and maybe me doing some gaming stuff and just getting on stream after I have the comic book conversation and just doing some streaming a game that I'm fucking with at that point, because I don't get to stream gaming too often on the channel as much as I would like to, especially this upcoming year with a lot of games coming out like Phantom Blade Zero, whatever it may be. If you guys have interest in seeing me play those games, let me know. I'll either do those live, or I could just pre-record them and just drop them as walkthroughs, I guess, on the channel as well. That could be a whole thing.
Yep.
But if you guys want to support me and anything that I am a part of, again, please, if you guys have not checked out Reaper issue 1, it is now available on either the Echelon Graphic Novels website. You guys can go buy the digital copy for $5 and read that, or you guys can buy the physical for $7.99. And if you guys want to have different covers, I have 4 different covers from 4 different amazing, talented artists, 2 of which are professionals. One of which, those 2 being Janoy Lindsay, who is the current artist for Absolute Green Lantern that's out right now, and I was obsessed with that and was blessed to have him be able to do a cover for that, as well as Dong-Hee Kim, who he did a recent Battle Beast variant cover for the Battle Beast solo run that happened last year. And then again, as far as supporting that run, that series of stuff going forward with comic books, issue 2 is in production now, and I have a Kickstarter out for issue 2, which I need to remember to put those links in the descriptions of these streams more often. You guys can go support that. And if you guys support that and you support the Kickstarter, you'll get a special variant cover that nobody else will have access to. So I have 3 covers that are currently coming out for that book, and I'll make posts about those soon, and I'm gonna let people vote on which covers they want to be the A and the B cover, and then I'll let the 3rd cover be the variant one that I keep for the Kickstarter backers, and that's how we'll handle that stuff going forward. And again, outside of that, please follow me on all my platforms, from the TikTok, the Instagram. I'm working on growing those up some more. So, since I can't make any more bread from the YouTube, it would be nice to be able to try to monetize another platform just to kind of help subsidize some of the production from the comic book between the content creation on this channel. Again, I'm doing it for the love of the game, but it is not cheap, and it would help out a lot if y'all could help me get to the goals that I want to get to on those. I normally don't do well and even liking to promote, and I feel like I'm begging at times to get people to go support me in those manners, but closed mouths don't get fed, and I have to live by that philosophy. So again, if you guys would support me there, I'd appreciate it. And thank you guys so much for showing up. And again, everybody that's here today, I hope to see y'all more and every Tuesday going forward. And they gotta have the same people here. We can have these conversations. And if you guys have topics that you would like to see us cover, anything that's in pop culture from a book or a theory or any post you see, you guys can shoot it to me at any of my social media platforms, and I can check them out whenever we're planning for these streams the week before and a week prior. We can look into it. And I may just make a video on it myself, because I'm trying to do a lot better at making videos that are long form, that are going to be more so around my perspective on things. I did a lot of video essays in the past year or 2 that were all scripted, and we still have a big docu-series that we've been working on. Me and Jay, he's been helping me write some of that stuff and do research for it. That will probably come out. I'm gonna wait to see what the news looks like on the appeal stuff first, because if I can make money off that, I got a feeling that docu-series is gonna be really it's gonna do really well for the channel. So I'm gonna kind of wait to see what that looks like. But that's everything that I have as a creator now. I've planned on the channel. I've done a bunch of different interviews from different podcasts around Reaper issue 1 and the Reaper in general as a story. So again, if you're interested in that, you guys can go find those. I'll post about those on my different socials as those come out. But yeah, Jay, you got anything that you want to bring attention to or anything you want to say before we get up out of here?
Folks, keep on thinking about the folks in Minnesota right now. It's pretty bad in Minneapolis. So just keep those people in mind as they're navigating through that.
Yeah, bro. I haven't talked about a lot of this stuff as much on the platform publicly. I think I more so talk about it and share stuff out on my socials, but it's tough with what we're going through with this fucking Trump regime and the things they have people going through between ICE and other things. I hope that this channel can be a little bit of an escape and some solace for people that kind of want to have a distraction away from a lot of the dark stuff going on in the world. And that's kind of where I kind of retreat to kind of have my own mental sanity happen, where I can recover and confide in my art and discussion around, nerdy topics. So again, this has been Captain Diesel of Captain Diesel's Dojo, or the Captain's Lounge, episode 34 of the Captain's Lounge. We will see everybody back next week, Tuesday, 8 p.m. sharp for episode 35. Again, thank you guys so much for showing up. This has been Captain Diesel of Captain Diesel's Dojo. And y'all remember, forever and always,
You're now watching the Captain.
and we'll see you guys next time. Peace, y'all.